Hello, thank you for joining me. So there's a couple things I want to talk about here before we leave our defining wall structure, our editing feature for these walls, and that is talk about a little bit of our editing menu that we're looking at here. These elements here on the bottom, default wrap in and modify structure and the section preview only areas, these are a little bit more items that would be typical for modifying maybe a stacked wall, where you have items that are stacked vertically rather than the whole components within the wall. We're going to cover that in some future class or video. But up here, these are the items that we're probably most familiar with, are these layers that we've been putting in. And you also notice that if you click on these layers, that they highlight in blue over here on the left-hand side, where we're looking at the structural image of the wall that we just created or modified. And that's pretty typical in Revit architecture. Every time you click on something that's going to be selected or has been selected, and Revit will turn blue, typically a light blue with maybe dark blue corners to it. So that's typical over here too. And it appears to be only visible in the section view rather than the plan view. But here in the plan view you can easily see the core boundary, which is bounded by those green lines. So back to the section view, zoom in on the bottom so we can see it a little bit better. Where'd we go? And there we have it. A couple other things here. You want to make sure that when you're dealing with your layers here, that you know that the exterior side is on top. The exterior side is on top. And you might need to know that for the test, so keep that in mind. When you're organizing your layers, the exterior layer is always on top. And you want to check out your total thickness, which is 4.5 inches, and you'll have that right there. All done with that? Like everything the way it looks? Go ahead and press OK. Get yourself out of that, and now you have 2 walls out of the 3 walls we need. The third wall is going to be your wall of your own choosing, and here are the constraints for that. You need to create a wall with 5 different layers. It needs to have a vapor, insulation, or an air barrier layer in there. So let me go ahead and insert a wall that I had created myself. That's our 7 1/8 inch wall that we created in AutoCAD. Yours has to be a little bit different than that. But because you're familiar with the 7 1/8 inch wall, let me go ahead and edit that wall and show you what's inside there and show you what you need to do to that wall in order to make your wall unique, but with the requirements of what's required here. So I have my clapboard siding on the outside, 5/8 inch. I have a membrane layer. It's a vapor moisture barrier, and that's at 0 inches. So you consider something like fabric or plastic or some sort of vapor or wind barrier to be of 0 thickness, because it's really hard to measure something like that thin. It is measurable, but not within the confines of a large 50 or 100 foot wall size project you might have. It wouldn't be practical to measure something that small. So typically the thickness is allowed for a membrane layer only. The thickness is allowed to be 0. Substrate is wood sheathing. Remember how we put the wood sheathing on the outside? And moving within our core boundary, we have a 5.5 inch wood stud layer. And again, the core boundary on the outside of that. And on the other side of that, on the inside of the wall, is gypsum wallboard. So remember what I was telling you about in regard to our layers and how they're stacked? The exterior is on top. So always remember that when you're putting your exterior wall together. And that's another requirement of this assignment. It has to be an exterior wall as your custom wall. And just go over the requirements again. It's got to be an exterior wall with 5 layers with some sort of vapor, insulation, or air barrier layer in there somewhere. So those are the requirements for that. Go to OK when you're all done with that. OK again, and now you have your 3 wall types. In the next video I'll show you how to do the constraints.